back to Moose on the Loose. My name's David. Today we've got Pierre Poilievre and Justin Trudeau going head-to-head in the House of Commons. It's Wednesday. This is when they battle it out. And Pierre sets the trap. He puts the cheese in the spot. He lets little Trudeau come in there with his little whiskers and goes for a little bite, the greedy little thief Trudeau, and he falls for it. Just wham! Trudeau falls for the trap. Pierre absolutely humiliates him. Let's jump into this.
The Prime Minister has had a revelation. In an interview with the Halifax Chronicle Herald, he told how he responded to people asking for him to spend even more government money. And he said, and I quote, "As soon as you do that, inflation goes up by exactly the same amount." Oh. Right? Oh. Right. Why didn't I think of that? My goodness. Spending money you don't have actually causes inflation. In the middle of having epiphanies, has he also realized that budgets don't balance themselves?
The Conservative Party has been using that approach about concerns on inflation to stand against things like national food programs for kids or dental care for seniors. They have stood and objected against and even campaigned against dental care for seniors over the past many months, but he stands against it with some made-up excuse around inflation when delivering services delivers for Canadians.
I can't believe he just said that. It's unbelievable. This idiot is the Prime Minister.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
He calls his own words a made-up excuse, Mr. Speaker. You can't make this stuff up. He said that when people ask him, can you send us more benefits or send us an extra $1,000 a month? Well, he responds, as soon as you do that, inflation goes up by exactly the same amount.
Oh, boy.
Right?
Oh, right. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, that is exactly why over the past years we've been focused on bringing down inflation by supporting Canadians, and it is working. For the past 4 months, Mr. Speaker, inflation has been down in the Bank of Canada target range while we continue to increase supports for Canadians, increase dental care, increase investments in childcare. These are the investments we're making that do not add to inflation, but add to Canadians' well-beings as they're making ends meet. That's what we stand for, Mr. Speaker.
He finally, for once, thought about monetary policy. He said, as soon as you spend more, inflation goes up by exactly the same amount. Right. And he is right for once. But repeating the same costly promises that he has already broken does not change that fundamental monetary rule. So will the Prime Minister acknowledge that, yes, the economy is about numbers, that people pay their rent in numbers, their gas in numbers, their groceries in numbers, and that the numbers are too high?
Fundamental difference in perspective between the Conservatives and this Liberal government. The macroeconomic situation of Canada is one of the best in the G7, one of the best in the world. And the independent credit rating agencies continue to give us AAA scores. The federal government is doing well, but Canadians need support. So we are choosing to deliver supports to Canadians with this solid fiscal position. Dental care, a national food policy.
I can't believe he just said the federal government is doing well. What a guy. Just
help for housing and investments in the kind of supports for Canadians that he has stood against every step of the way, Mr. Speaker.
So they switch over to French here. It's quite the back and forth. Pierre just laid out the bait and Trudeau fell for it. He has used his own words against him. Oh, Trudeau. You'd think there'd be one day where Trudeau doesn't completely embarrass himself, but that's not today.
When I was housing minister, we built almost 200,000 houses and apartments, with the average rent being $973 for a one-bedroom apartment. But this Prime Minister is not worth the cost of housing, which has doubled 9 years after he and the NDP took power. What is he doing about it? He's giving $500 million to the mayor of Toronto, who has just jacked up home building taxes by 20%. Why does he reward local government gatekeepers that block the homes that Canadians need?
Not only that, the Toronto Mayor, Olivia Chow, just spent the most amount of money ever on a Rainbow Road. World's longest pride-colored road cost Canadian taxpayers $200,000. This is where tax money's going. You can see here, congratulations. Somebody's gonna run into somebody on a bike there. Like that's get this crap off the roads. It doesn't matter if it's a bike lane or city roads. Get the rainbows off the roads. Put them on buildings, put them on flags, whatever. Get them off the roads. This Rainbow Road located in Toronto is also the longest Rainbow Road. People don't care. It's not being embraced. Nobody is celebrating this. In fact, it's aggravating and irritating people to the point if they haven't already turned against all the progress that's been made, they're going to, because not only does this road look absolutely atrocious, but it's also beyond hideous and looks completely forced onto people who already don't care about it nor want it shoved in their face. The message people want to send these clowns constantly doing all their virtual signaling is simple. Stop pushing this nonsense on people. They're sick of it.
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we are leading on the efforts to solve this housing crisis with a plan that is ambitious and concrete. Meanwhile, after having his housing bill panned by experts as being, quote, exceptionally weak response to the housing crisis riddled with loopholes, the Conservative leader chose to repeatedly delay debate in this House since October on his bill. That's because he just doesn't care. When he was minister, he lost 800,000 affordable apartments and only built 6 affordable homes.
Trudeau's is doubling down on lies, and Sean Fraser, the failed housing minister, is increasingly becoming more arrogant. We're having lower and lower housing starts, building costs are up, people are living in tent encampments. There's 50 new tent encampments in Toronto alone in the last 6 weeks, yet they think they're heroes of this country.
Actually, the number is closer to 200,000, but the Prime Minister's never been very good with numbers, right? So the Prime Minister cites the government-funded bureaucrats and liberal academics to bolster his approach, which has doubled housing costs in just 9 years, partly because he gives money to municipalities and politicians like Winnipeg, where they just blocked 2,000 homes right next to a government-funded transit station built for those homes. Why won't he accept my common sense plan to give bonuses to those municipalities that permit more building and penalties to those that stand in the way?
Because that makes too much sense, that's why.
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we criticize rightly the leader of the opposition who, when he was housing minister, only built 6 affordable homes for Canadians across the country. But it is understandable, Mr. Speaker, because he was part of a government that took the federal government out of the building of affordable housing. They chose that the federal government had nothing to do with housing across the country. That's why for 10 years of non-involvement of the federal government, that leaves echoes. We've stepped up and invested in communities, invested in partnerships. We're getting the homes built. We're delivering for Canadians.
They have to build a house every 57 seconds. If you didn't see the video from it was yesterday or 2 days ago, or 18,000 houses per day. So no, you're not getting the houses built. Not only that, the 3.9 million houses to be built by 2030, they've also wrapped up some numbers of houses that are already partly constructed to help bolster their numbers. It's all a bunch of smoke and mirrors and lies. They're not going to get to those numbers. We don't have enough builders to build that, and they're stealing numbers off of stuff that's already on way.
Sure. Housing costs have doubled since he became Prime Minister. They were half when I was housing minister. Housing costs have gone up 40% faster than wages, a bigger gap than in any other G7 country. Why? Because he's building bureaucracy and not homes. Why won't he accept my common sense plan to require municipalities permit 15% more building, sell off 6,000 federal buildings to build homes, and cut taxes so builders can build?
Canada is facing a housing crisis, and we need to take real action towards it, which is what we've done with the most ambitious and achievable plan that this country's ever seen. But, Mr. Speaker, that's not to say we haven't had housing crises before. It is not to say we haven't solved housing crises before. At the end of World War II, there was a need for massive new housing, and Canada stepped up and got that housing built. Indeed, when the boomers came of age, there was a need for massive housing, and we made investments, and the federal government helped build housing across the country for boomers. We are doing that now as we build housing.
No, you're not. You're increasing immigration and bringing more and more and more people in, just creating new excuses. Oh, it's if you've had a parent that's lived in Canada for 3 years, oh, you can bring in all your kids now. Oh, if you're from Gaza, come on in. If you're from here, you're from there, come on in. We all know Trudeau's not trying to solve the housing crisis. Otherwise, he would announce tomorrow that he's cutting immigration to zero until the housing situation is sorted.
That was a wonderful history lesson, except it didn't answer the question. He promised he'd lower housing costs in 2015. He doubled them. He promised he'd double home building. It actually went down and is still dropping. But now he's promising 3.9 million brand new homes by 2031. That means he'd have to build 550,000 this year and every year. So once again, will the Prime Minister keep his promise to build 550,000 homes this year? Yes or no?
That's a great question.
Mr. Speaker, the leader opposite speaks of 2015. Well, we took office with a commitment to get this government back, the federal government back in the business of building housing. We launched a national housing strategy in 2017 that put 2.5 million Canadians into new or refurbished homes, and we've continued to invest ever since. We're building homes on public lands. We're converting underused federal...
What is a refurbished home? It's not like when you send in your sleeping pad or your phone or something to get fixed and refurbished. I've never heard that term before.
Offices into homes. We're taxing vacant lands to incentivize construction. We're building apartments, bringing rents down with top-ups to the apartment construction loan program. We're scaling up modular housing. We're launching Canada Builds to lead a Team Canada effort to build more homes and more, Mr. Speaker.
The question was not how quickly he could read off talking points written for him by his staff. The question was whether he's going to break yet another housing promise. Remember, he promised he'd lower housing costs, he doubled them. He promised he'd double the number of homes built, they went down. Now he's promising 3.9 million new homes by 2031. That means 550,000 new homes this and every year. Will he keep that promise? Yes or no?
Speaker, the leader of the opposition's criticism is there's too many measures in our housing plan. Housing should be solved by a simple one-size-fits-all solution, according to the leader of the opposition. That's perhaps how he managed to build only 6 affordable homes when he was Minister of Housing. Because yes, we have a broad range of initiatives that are delivering on housing, like topping up the Housing Accelerator Fund with $400 million, a new $6 billion Canada Housing Infrastructure Fund to help communities build. We're leveraging transit funding to build more homes. We're launching a housing design catalog. We're incentivizing more skilled trade workers.
Yet the situation just gets worse and worse and worse. It's almost like all that money is not going to build any homes. It's almost like it's just being wasted.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
He's announcing a catalog, everybody! Give him a round of applause. Come on, give him a round of applause. You can't afford a home. You might end up in a tent. Your rent is doubled. But hey, you've got a brand new catalog. Mr. Speaker, the question was, will he build 550,000 new homes, yes or no?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Pierce is making a mockery of Trudeau. This man, there's going to be nothing of him left after this. He's just going to keep shrinking until he's into his shoes.
He mentioned the history lesson. Well, if he was housing minister, he should have known that the way we solved the housing crisis after World War II was by putting forward a catalog of homes that builders could access to build extremely extremely rapidly right across the country. So yes, that's one of the measures we're bringing back. And his mockery of concrete initiatives that are going to deliver for Canadians is exactly what's wrong with his approach. He'd rather mock and insult than actually roll up his sleeves and get solutions built for Canadians.
That whole roll up your sleeves thing. You know what? Another one they've got is the sharpen our pencils. They started using that one now too. It's like, guys, you don't know what hard work is.
But of course, the NDP is keeping this costly prime minister in office for another year and a half. Well, people starve and are forced to live in tents. Those Canadians who've been able to hold on to their homes, they can't afford a vacation, but maybe a staycation. So we're asking today that the Prime Minister vote for a motion we will introduce tomorrow, which will give Canadians a 35-cent a litre gas tax break until Labor Day. Will the Prime Minister axe the taxes so Canadians can have a staycation?
Mr. Speaker, the Conservative Party is proposing to eliminate the Canada carbon rebate. This is a rebate that arrives 4 times a year in the pockets of Canadian families.
Enough of this garbage. So say they did remove that 35 cents. That means people like me and people in Quebec would then get 35 cents per litre off the gas. We don't get carbon tax rebates. This bonehead will refuse to answer any questions ever. Not once has he answered a question, and he just keeps barfing out this garbage.
Families that, according to, puts more money, 8 out of 10, more money in people's pockets while we fight climate change with the...
How do I get more money in my pocket when I don't get a rebate, you piece of garbage? $2 a litre where I live. How do people who say a realtor who has to drive around a lot, or construction workers who have to drive around a lot, getting no rebates, how is this benefiting? We all know the answer to this. These guys are just stealing our money, and then they're fleecing it through garbage programs. I suspect they'll be collecting that money after they get thrown out of power. They've probably got some deal with Xi Jinping, which is why they're tanking our government. I think they have money hidden over in Ukraine. They're just going to stuff their pockets. There's no logical reason why any human would do this to us. At what point do we start calling out for, like, Americans? Like, if Trump gets in power, can Canadians start calling out for help for Trump to bring up the military and free Canada? Because Canada is not free. This is becoming a straight up dictatorship with this piece of human crap running our country.
The most effective plan against climate change Canada has ever seen.
Of course, the Prime Minister is doing neither. After 9 years, the NDP Liberal Prime Minister is not worth the cost, and neither is his carbon tax, which the Parliamentary Budget Officer finds costs more to 60% of Canadians than they get back in phony rebates. Mr. Speaker, going into the summer, the Prime Minister plans to hike taxes again. Canadians need a break now more than ever. Can he put aside his wacko ideology long enough to give Canadians a break by axing all the taxes on fuel for summer vacation?
I love how he keeps bringing up wacko. It's like he's pushing the sore spot. He knows that that's going to piss off Trudeau.
Mr. Speaker, it's not ideology to understand that fighting climate change and growing the economy while putting money in people's pockets is a good thing, because
Trudeau, get out of our country. You're not welcome here.
Our emissions are now the lowest they've been in 25 years because of our plan. 8 of 10 Canadians plan to fight climate change.
It's quite literally 99% chance of winning. There should be some metric in the government where it's like, if polls are saying 99% chance, it should just auto-trigger an election. Like, what kind of stupid crap do we have here? There needs to be a serious rewrite to the basic framework of Canadian democracy.
Speaker, he ranks 62nd out of 67 countries on fighting climate change. This after he's brought in a 17-cent a litre carbon tax, a tax that he wants to nearly quadruple up to 61 cents a litre if, God forbid, he's ever elected. We have 2 million people lined up at food banks, a quarter of Canadians skipping meals because they can't afford food. 1 in 4 adults missing meals so they can feed their kids. For God's sakes, why won't he give Canadians a summer vacation from all his taxes and accept our common sense plan?
The Conservative leader isn't focused on affordability. He's focused on ending action on climate change. If he was so concerned about the price of gas, he'd have a conversation with his friend, the Premier of Alberta, who just raised the gas tax by 13 cents a litre. Experts agree,
Look at these guys with the outrage. This garbage, I already covered this in another video. They review it every quarter and it's based on the price of oil. It's auto-triggered based on the barrel price of oil. It's not because she decided to raise the tax. Trudeau is such a liar. All these people are just pathetic humans.
Including Premier Smith, that Canadians receive back more money from the Canada carbon rebate than they pay with the price on pollution. More money back.
There you have it. The big Wednesday showdown between Pierre Poilievre and Justin Trudeau. Pierre set the traps over and over, humiliated him. That's all we can do at this point. You know, Pierre's got to get his message out because there's a lot of people in Canada that are just not following the politics and they don't know what's going on. They're just like, oh yeah, Trudeau, I like his hair. I voted for him last time. No more of that crap. People need to get educated. So as videos kind of pop off and news articles and what have you, then people slowly are coming around here and learning how terrible Trudeau is. So, but I really think it's time to rewrite our basic constitution and have auto-triggered elections when you have corrupt dictators running the country to the ground. There should be not just the one metric I mentioned there when you have polls stating 99% chance of winning. There should be other ones in there as well. Because when it comes down to it, it should be of the best interest, the protection of citizens. But right now, the prime minister is like a god in this country. It's not good. It's not good at all. I would love to see a system go more like Switzerland's, where they got the 7 or whatever 9 prime ministers, round table style. Either way, something has to change because Canada can't go through this again and again. Like, who knows, in 20 years from now, do people forget? And then you got Justin's kid comes up and then he's even worse than Justin. Like, is this going to be a family tradition to keep destroying Canada and siphoning as much cash as possible, just getting rich off the backs of our hard work? Like, anyways, thanks for watching the end of the video here. Be sure to subscribe, ring that notification bell if you want to get notified of my videos. We'll keep fighting for freedom. I'll keep bringing you guys the truth. I'll see you guys in the next one.